Let's talk about the brutal, honest truth of trading. Almost everyone fails. But this isn't about scaring you off. Not at all. It's about showing you exactly where the traps are so you can sidestep them completely.
Just look at that number, 90%. Regulatory data, industry studies, they all point to somewhere between 75 and 90% of retail traders losing money and, eventually just giving up. That is a massive, massive number. And it's not a scare tactic. It's just the reality of the game we're choosing to play.
And that right there is the million-dollar question, isn't it? What on earth are they all doing wrong? I mean, if that many people are failing, they have to be making the same kinds of mistakes over and over again. Understanding those mistakes, that's your first and biggest step to making sure you land on the right side of that statistic.
So here's how we're going to break it all down. First, we'll face that failure rate head-on. Then, we'll get into the core psychological reason everyone trips up. After that, we'll pinpoint the 3 biggest mistakes traders make, and then, the most important part, we'll lay out the actual game plan for how to survive and thrive.
Yeah, we have to start here. This isn't just some number I pulled out of a hat. This is the baseline. It's the default setting. It's what happens if you approach trading the same way everybody else does. So our job is to figure out what everybody else is doing so we can do the complete opposite.
Now, it's so important to understand where the trouble really begins. It's almost always in that jump from a practice account to a live one. That's the moment the entire game changes. Not because the market's any different, but because you are.
Just look at this breakdown. In a demo account, it's like a video game, right? It's totally consequence-free. You're analytical, you're calm, you're just focused on following your plan. But the second your real money is at risk, a switch just flips in your brain. All of a sudden, every little tick on the chart feels personal. Your focus snaps from, did I follow my process, to, oh my God, am I making or losing money right now? And that's the trap.
And this quote just hits the nail on the head. The charts, the price action, the indicators. They don't know and they don't care if you're trading with fake money or your life savings. The only thing that changes in the whole equation is you. Your own mind becomes the weakest link.
Okay, so with that psychological gap in mind, let's see how it actually plays out in the real world. Let's diagnose the top 3 mistakes that absolutely destroy trading accounts.
This chart pretty much tells the whole story. Look at the biggest slice of the pie. Half the battle is just in your head. It's psychological. Then you've got poor risk management. And look at that. A flawed strategy is actually the smallest piece of the puzzle. Most people spend all their time hunting for the perfect strategy when that's the part that matters the least. They're focusing on the 20% and ignoring the 80% that's actually sinking them.
All right, let's dive into reason number 1, terrible risk management. The math on this is just brutal, and you can't argue with it. If you're risking 5% of your account on a single trade, all it takes is a totally normal, statistically likely 5-trade losing streak, and bam, you've just torched a quarter of your entire account. That's not bad luck, that's just bad math.
And here's where that psychology really comes into play. You know what I'm talking about? That revenge trade you take right after a loss, just trying to make it back quick? Or that little voice of hope that tells you to move your stop loss just a little further down? Or the fear that makes you snatch a tiny profit only to watch the trade run for hundreds more without you? All of these are emotional decisions that completely hijack your logical plan.
And finally, we have this self-defeating cycle of doom. We've all seen it. You find a new strategy, it works for a bit, and then you hit a perfectly normal losing streak. And your first thought is, this strategy is broken. You lose all faith, you jump on YouTube to find the next holy grail, and you just repeat the cycle over and over. You never give a single strategy enough time for its mathematical edge to actually work.
Okay, enough with the problems. We've gone through the diagnosis, now let's talk about the cure. How do you actually fix all of this?
Here it is. The whole solution boils down to this one critical mindset shift. You have to stop being a gambler and start acting like a business owner. The 90% who fail, they're acting like they're at a slot machine, just pulling the lever and hoping for a jackpot. The 10% who make it, they're methodical, they're professional, they treat this like a serious business. And this right here is the cornerstone of acting like a business owner. Pros live and die by the 2% rule. But for us, retail traders, the advice is even stricter, the 1% rule. Think of this as your survival kit. It means you never risk more than 1% of your capital on any single trade, period. This one rule makes it mathematically almost impossible to blow up your account quickly. It forces you to stay in the game.
This slide, this is everything. You have to completely redefine what a good trade even is. A good trade is not one that made money. It's one where you followed your plan to the letter, whether you won or lost. You know what a bad trade is? It's when you break your rules and get lucky with a win, because that just reinforces terrible habits. Losses aren't failures, they're just the cost of doing business, like inventory for a shop.
So how do you build this professional mindset? You write it down. You create a physical, documented trading plan. This is your business plan. It tells you exactly when to get in, when to get out, and how much to risk before you even think about clicking the mouse. You make all the hard decisions when you're calm and rational, so you don't have to make them when you're stressed and emotional.
So, let's bring it all home. The path from being in that failing 90% to the successful 10%, it has nothing to do with finding some secret indicator or magic formula. It's about a complete and total shift in how you approach the game.
And this quote just says it all, doesn't it? Every single successful trader has a different strategy, a different style, but the one thing they all have in common, discipline. Discipline is the bedrock. It's what lets you push through those inevitable losing streaks without losing your cool, or, your entire account.
So I'm going to leave you with this one question. I want you to be really honest with yourself. When you sit down at your desk, are you pulling the lever on a slot machine, just hoping for a random payout? Or are you opening up for business for the day, methodically executing a plan that's designed for long-term survival? Because the answer to that question, well, that's what's going to decide which side of that 90% you end up on.